Hey everybody, I'm Tarl Yarber with Fixated Real Estate, and welcome to another episode of Analyzing Deals Like a Pro. I'm going to show you guys a house today that we purchased just outside of Seattle, Washington, just like 2 weeks ago. We barely even started the rehab on it. I'm going to show you guys how we acquired it and how all the numbers are broken down, including how we determined the level of rehab and how this will help you guys out right now determine what level of finish and what level of rehab to do on a property, even build a scope of work. We're going to get into it big time today, and I hope it's going to help your guys' businesses. Now, this house here, as you can see when we go through it, it is a mess. It was condemned by the city of Tacoma. It's been sitting there for years, code enforcement all over it. You can see all of the craziness that's going on with this house already and might think it's a bit of a big project. Well, I'm going to show you that it's not as big of a project as you might think once you start jumping into it. This is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,054 square foot home ready for us to work on it. And I'm going to show you guys how we pull the comps on it, as well as how to get the level of finish you need and the fact that it's really not that big of a project once you dive into it. So I'm going to show you guys some really key pro tips in this deal as well. How to manage risk, which is a key to investing. How to prep and plan before you act on this deal or any deal going forward. And of course, one of my biggest lessons that I've ever had in my career, it is better to pay for professionals and learn from them than to do it yourself and pay the price of doing it yourself. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that on this property right now. All right, let's jump into this project. First, before you look at any project, you first need to know what your strategy is going to be for that particular project. Now, for us, we look at every project from the top down of BRRRR first, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And if we don't think it's a good deal for us as a BRRRR, which we all have our different criteria, and we actually have a lot of videos on BiggerPockets YouTube channel that break down the BRRRR criteria for us, and you guys can check that out right now and go ahead and subscribe to the BiggerPockets channel. Now, if it's not a BRRRR, then we will flip it. Now, flipping is great. We made a ton of money at flipping it. The challenge with flipping, though, is it's the last deal you'll ever do with that property because you flipped it. But you can make a lot of great money at it. Now, if that's not good enough, then maybe we will wholesale it instead. And that's where we tie up the property under contract and we assign the contract to another investor just like us. And if we can't wholesale it, maybe we'll list it. Now, I don't list properties, but somebody on my team does for us, and that's just as good. So the question you got to ask yourself, how do you view properties? Through what lens are you looking at these deals through? That's going to determine the type of deals you get all the time. And it's also going to determine how you handle this particular project. Now, how did we find this project? We found this project through a wholesaler. We network with wholesalers all the time. It's one of the #1 ways we acquire our properties. Now, let's look at this disgusting house one more time and throw it up there on the screen for you. This house was brought to us to purchase it for $175,000. Now, that included a $20,000 assignment fee to the wholesaler. So a wholesaler made 20 grand selling us this property right now, which is crazy. And they take no risk on it once they've tied it up and sell it to us, which is a great way to make money. I've made plenty of money wholesaling properties, how I got started in the business. So we acquired it for $175,000. Now, estimated rehab on this project, which you guys are going to be blown away by this, I'm going to show you how we did it and why it's not that big of a deal, is $90,000. That's a big project, but with the cost that's out there right now, and it's really not that big of a project, considering most of it is quote, cosmetic, because we're not tearing out a bunch of walls and adding bathrooms and everything. Now, if we do the rehab correctly, and I'm going to show you guys some comparables of what that actually means, then we should be able to sell this thing for $350,000 at the end of the project. Now, with current market conditions, sure, there's a chance that that price might go up and we can make more money. But also, because of current market conditions and unknowns, it can also go down. So a big thing we measure is risk. We measure risk. That's what we do as investors. That's what you should be doing as well. Mitigate risk. So that's my first pro tip for you guys, is to mitigate and measure risk through measuring the margin first on a deal and dollars second. What do I mean by that? So if we bought it for $175, rehabbed it for $90, and sold it for $350,000, after all closing costs involved with selling it, closing costs on this property, which we have excise tax in Seattle, Washington area, and we also, of course, have commissions to pay for the realtor and escrow closing taxes as well, and property taxes, blah, blah, blah. At selling at $350, that's about $23,800 roughly in closing costs, which in turn, cash-wise, after a little bit of other holding costs and so forth, like utilities and blah, 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 but no finance costs, zero finance costs. This is buying it all cash. That would net you a profit of $57,750. Now, the margin on that, or what we call the cash on cash return, is 21.5%. Now, everybody measures it a little bit differently, but if you bought this property cash and sold it after doing everything cash, including rehab, it's technically a 21.5% return on your money after all closing costs and so forth, and some minor holding costs with no finance charge. Now, if you talk to any investor out there, if they had a 21% margin deal, would they buy it? I can promise you almost all veteran investors would jump on that in a heartbeat. Now, if you add some other scenarios to it, like what's the level of rehab, how long is the timeline, how long it will take you to do it, blah, 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 that might change some things based on complication. That's something you have to decide for yourself. Now, what we do in our business is anything that's a 15% plus cash on cash return, we're going to look at very seriously, and there's a good chance we're going to buy it if it's a single family home in our area. Anything 20%, there's a very good chance we're definitely buying it. Now, once we see those numbers, you can add in your finance charges. You can add in, do you pay points with your lenders and finance costs and so forth into it, and see what your total cash dollars are going to be. Now, this particular deal, if you borrowed at, let's say, 2 points and 10%, and you did that over the course of 4 or 5 months of holding costs, right, that's going to increase your cost to the deal by right around another, like anywhere between $15,000 and $18,000 in finance charges and points, which might mean that you make less money, but at least you financed it. In this example, if I threw that in for 5 months and did 2 points on it, then our net profit would be right around $41,658, give or take. So the question after you add all that in is that, would you do this deal to make around 40 grand? And for some of you guys, you would say, absolutely not. That's too much work for 40 grand. And some of you guys would be like, hell yes, I would do that for 40,000 bucks. I guess what would determine that has more to do with how much work you got to put into it. So let's jump into the rehab momentarily here and show you guys how much work you actually got to put into this deal and whether or not it's going to be worth it to you guys to continue on with it, or maybe wholesale it to somebody else or pass on it or whatever for you guys. Or some of you guys might be watching this right now then and saying, tear this down. And in your market, it might be an area that you would tear down a house, but you got to know your market. And believe it or not, some of you guys are looking at this house right now going, I can't believe you bought the house for that much money. There's no way it would sell for that much money in your market. Well, that's your market. And guess what? It's a big market out there in the United States, and every city is different. So know your market and know your comparables and know what you're getting into. Now, let's jump into rehab. Now, in order to determine the level of rehab you need to do on a particular project, specifically like a one like this, you need to first look at comparables. Comparables allow you to figure out what level of rehab you need to do. Also, what can you sell the house for? What level of finish? How much you should do to it? Should you leave it a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, or do you need it to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? Do you need to add square footage? Is it really as important or not? All those things you have to have comparables for. If you buy a property and never look at comps ever, then you're doing something wrong, in my opinion. You're in a good chance of failure long term in this business, if not short term also. So when we pull comps, we look for probably 5 or 6 or 7 comps if we can, but get at least 3. So when determining the level of rehab on a property, specifically even one like this, you might look at this photo that's on this property right now and see this is already messed up. It's boarded up, there's garbage everywhere, it's overgrown. You'll be able to see later the roof's messed up, the windows are super old. We'll break it down, all that as well. And you go like, there's way too much work here to get this done, and I might want to run away from it just because it looks like a scary project. Now, I'm going to go through this property with you step by step, how I look at it, and we're going to build a scope of work together very simply, very quickly. And I'm going to give you some tips on it. First, tip. First tip that I'm going to give you is go buy this book. It is the book on estimating rehab costs by Jay Scott, good buddy of mine. He's with BiggerPockets, right? We love this guy to death. I read this book years ago when I had to start learning rehab on my own. I used to have a business partner that handled it for me. And then I read this book when I left that business partnership. And this changed the way I look at things. It shows you a breakdown step by step on how to start looking at properties and start determining how you're going to build your own rehab scopes, your budgets, and so forth. And it's a good reference book for sure, right? So get that. That's number 1 tip for you guys right there. The second thing, we're going to go through this and we're going to look for red flags, big ticket red flags. And while we're going through it, we're going to start listing out the red flags together so that we can start building a scope just based on these photos. And I'm also going to do a cool video walkthrough with you guys too. So I always start on the exterior of the house first before we start looking into the interior. Because if the exterior already has some massive issues here, then it's going to be able to, that's going to increase the cost of the rehab budget pretty quickly. Now we know this property is 175, right? And we also know we can sell it for 350 max if we do it right. So that's how you determine how much rehab budget you can get into a deal based on your margin. So for us, if we want a 21.5% margin, then we only have a $90,000 budget. If I increase my budget to 100 grand, that just reduces my margin. My minimum margin's 15%, right? At that point, so I could probably go up to 105, 110,000 in rehab if I had to hit my minimum margin. But the truth be told, I don't want to, because that's a lot of work to dollars wise equate to maybe 30 grand in profit, right? Which maybe I don't want to do that then. So I'm going to try to hit this $90,000 budget. So if I walk this house, and if you walk this house knowing you have 90 grand to do this at in your area, that might be 60 grand or 50 grand based on the level of rehabs in your area and costs. But if you have 90 grand, then start on the outside first. And if already there's a ton of costs, then you might not even need to go into the house. So first and foremost, let's list this out. Here's the house, here's the outside. You can tell there's overgrown bushes and hedges. So clean up landscaping, number one. Number two, there's garbage everywhere. So if there's garbage on the outside, there's probably garbage on the inside. So you need to do a trash out. When we walk on the side of the house, you can see there's the roof's messed up already. You got a bunch of, we already said landscaping. So the roof, without even looking at it any detail further, there's moss everywhere. It's totally overgrown. We know we're gonna need a new roof. So roof, that's a big ticket item number one. Roof. Now, roofs can cost a ton and roofs can cost not that much, depending if you have good roofers or not. So we're going to mark that one down as well as a big ticket item, roof. Looking at the front porch, we're going to need new railing. We're going to need a new porch set up, but we only need to get those boards fixed up and pressure wash the steps there. So we need to do a little clean up the front porch. The gutter system. The gutter system's looking okay. I might want to inspect that further. So I'm going to leave that off for now, but definitely some downspout work needs to get done. And look, of that boarded up windows. Those windows are messed up without even having to go see them in person. They're broken up all over the place. They're old wood window frames, right? Upstairs you can see is an old window. Everything's old windows. So I'm just going to flat out assume we need all new windows. So that's second red flag, big ticket item. First is roof, second is windows. Another ticket item to look at is siding. Now this siding's actually looking like in great condition. Now if you add the siding to it, it's not going to be that, it's going to really start to add a lot of cost to this deal. But so far the siding's not looking too so bad, except for this dormer that's up here. That's an old cedar shake siding, which traditionally would be nice, but on this particular house, it looks pretty worn out. So we are going to need to do some siding to the dormer. Going to the dormer, you can see up there in the eaves, it's kind of messed up there too. Another thing back to the roof, which we already got, but there's no gutter boards, no gutters there. So some minor gutter work that we got to do, plus also no fascia. We need to add some fascia. So we definitely need to do some work to the dormer, which might be a pretty big increased cost depending on what we find underneath. But good chance it's okay, especially from what we see on the interior. There's that garage. The garage roof's messed up. We're going to add that into it. The garage door needs to be taken care of. You can see some fascia damage here. We also know that we have to do paint. We already know we're going to do paint. So if you already know you're going to do exterior paint, that should be a given. In this particular example, we already know the siding's all right so far, but we're going to do exterior paint on both the garage and the main house. Looks like the garage door, like I said, the garage man doors are messed up, plus also the garage windows. So that encompasses in with windows and exterior doors. Oh, great, cool. An extra unit. There's an RV here, a pop-up. I forgot that we actually got that with the property. So maybe if you're burying the property, this could be an extra, this is a DADU, a detached accessory dwelling unit. I don't know how much you can get for that, but some parts of the US, I'm sure it's a couple grand a month. All right, back to the other side of the house. Some minor siding repair, no big deal there. I can't tell from any foundation issues that are in there, but my team did walk it. No major issues there. You could definitely get an inspector to look at the foundation for you. That's back to professionals. I would hire them and have them inspect the house, and always get a homeowner inspection if you can on a property. It's $150 to $500 depending on where you are. Add it to the cost of doing the deal. Back door, right? You can see there's exterior door issues, which we talked about. Some of this is very minor barge board challenges, which isn't really an issue, so I'm not even going to add that in there. So after walking the exterior, like there's really not a whole lot here. We've talked about big tickets, which is roof, big ticket 1, windows, big ticket 2. Those are the two big costs that we know we're going to have to deal with on this particular property on the exterior. So far, that's fitting inside our budget of $90,000. Now, if you added siding to it and all that great stuff, we had to remove all the siding. Now we're really approaching that we're getting into some major danger zone here for the rehab budget, but we're not there yet. The rest of this exterior project is normal stuff. We're going to have to do landscaping. We're going to have to pressure wash stuff. We're going to have to do some porch work. No big deal. Minor repairs. Do some exterior window wrap trim. Do minor siding repairs. Fix the garage doors, exterior doors. All normal stuff that we would do on a project anyways, but we have to account for those things, but they're not big ticket costs. Now we have a special treat for you guys this time. I'm going to do something a little different for you. We're going to walk this property together and see how this goes. So let's go inside the house and let's walk this house just as we would walk it in reality on the interior of the house. It's going to be a little fun because we're going to walk it through first person perspective of the property and see what we can catch while looking at things on this house. So before we go through the front door, we already catch one of the other red flags, which I didn't bring up in the beginning. This is all over code enforcement right now. So that is actually a red flag. If you think it's just easy to get through code enforcement, it's not always easy. A lot of your local cities have a lot of processes you got to get through in order to get through the red tape to be able to work on the property to begin with. For them to turn power back on, all that great stuff, you got to go through some hoops. So this could be a major red flag if there's a bunch of back charges and costs and fines and fees that you might not be aware of. Right? We had a lot of experience with Tacoma code enforcement, so there's things you can do through escrow before you close to make sure you're protected and do it right with most code enforcement agencies. But still something you have to deal with and you just can't ignore or else it's going to bite you in the ass later. All right, going through the house. First off, as soon as we walk in, we stop. And without even looking at anything else, I can already see a few things that we're going to have to deal with and note. Number one, what's the heat source in this property? You can see right here that there is a baseboard heat. So there's no furnace in this property already that I can tell of. There's electric baseboard heat. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm noticing is there's a kitchen with a wall in front of it. So the question I got to ask myself is that, do I want to open that wall up? And we're going to go look at that here in a minute, a little bit closer. But should we be opening up the floor plan concept? We're going to take note of that because will that add value? Will it be better for the property? Most of the time, that's a yes nowadays. But is it load bearing? Is it going to increase costs? The other things I could already tell from the condition of this house without looking at any other room that this house is gross. It probably smells right now. You can taste the money in it. I don't even need to go any further knowing we have to do everything cosmetic on this house. We're not keeping anything. Very good chance we're not keeping anything. Now, if you know that you're not going to keep most of the stuff in this house, base trim, doors, windows, all that kind of stuff, right? Then you could start categorizing things in big buckets of the project. And you don't have to worry about if a baseboard's messed up or not because you already know you're replacing it. So without going through the rest of the house, I'm already going to make a bet that we're replacing all the base, all the case, all the trim work, and all the doors on this property almost immediately just because of how disgusting the first portion of the living room is on this property. So let's add that to the scope of work without even looking at anything else. I could bet you we're going to do that. The second thing I can already tell from looking at the living room is we're going to have to do a lot of paint, right? We might even need to do some kills if it smells good enough. But we're going to do paint, all interior paint for base trim and doors, all interior paint for the walls and ceilings. We also know we're going to need flooring throughout as well. The type of flooring, right? We don't know yet, but we know we're going to need all new flooring. We can't say what's there. It's probably all disgusting. Immediately, I'm just in the living room and I've barely taken a step through the door. And we can already tell we're doing a bunch of interior work, but so far, probably cosmetic. Now, sure enough, you can see floor plan, there's the bathroom, right? It's your traditional kind of layout in this house that we see here all the time in Tacoma. The bathroom itself totally needs to be gutted out. There's no way we're saving this thing. So that's a full brand new bathroom. Now, what's a full new bathroom take? It's the same for every bathroom unless you're doing a bigger 5-piece bathroom or whatever. But your traditional standard bathroom needs a tub shower combo. Whether you tile it or do surrounds, up to you, but you need that. You need all your valves and so forth and plumbing fixtures. You need your toilet. You need a vanity. You need a sink faucet, right? And you need a mirror and you need a light. And you need a little bit of flooring, right? That's about it. You don't actually even need heat in a bathroom, to be honest with you, but you can add a heat lamp or something like that. If you know you're already gutting a bathroom out, that's all you got to add to the scope of work. You're good to go. Now, we're not even going to change the layout of this bathroom. We're just going to basically make it nice, rip it all out, and put it back together almost exactly where it was. So that's pretty straightforward, actually. Going through the bedrooms, this confirms what I thought as soon as we entered earlier into this house. You can see there's baseboard heat. You can see everything's pretty nasty. Probably gonna have to do some kills as well. What is that? A hole? Is that a mouse hole? I think that is like a rat mouse hole or something like that. You never see that except in like Speedy Gonzales and so forth back in the day in Looney Tunes. But the base trim, the doors, all nasty, disgusting. Oh, there's Speedy Gonzales. Poor guy. Didn't really make it after all. Or that's Slowpoke, his brother or cousin or whoever it was. Go look up Looney Tunes. Anyways, so you could tell we have to do some skim coating a little bit on the drywall. But yeah, we're not saving any of this stuff. We're ripping it all out and starting fresh. But we're not changing the floor plan. Nothing's really determined to me to change the floor plan yet. So let's go check out the kitchen. All right, first off, kitchen. I don't need to step in the rest of the way. Kitchen's getting gutted. Probably going to get the changed a little bit as well. And based on the layout of the house, if that wall is not load, I'm going to want to rip it out. If it is load, I will need to rip it. I will want to rip it out as well, but we're going to need to put a beam, some post work in there. And this is where you hire another professional if you aren't comfortable with your current codes and you don't have the right framers and so forth to add a beam, make sure that it's not load, that kind of stuff, right? There's some ways to find out if it's a load. We have past videos on properties that we can show you guys how to do that. That's another reason why to subscribe to the BiggerPockets YouTube channel. Watch some of our past videos. We have a lot of education for you on these topics. So of course, back to the kitchen. We're gonna gut this thing and we need a brand new kitchen. So what does a brand new kitchen mean? It's pretty simple if you have a very basic kitchen plan. And I'll show you what that is too. If you don't want to overcomplicate it, you need a place for a sink with a faucet. You need a place for a dishwasher if you need it. You might not need one, but you need a place for a dishwasher. You need a place for a stove, a range hood preferably, and a refrigerator. Those things you have to have in the kitchen most of the time. Everything else is just based on design. Where do you put the kitchen cabinets? What do you use, quartz countertops, or do you use Formica, right? All those things you have to decide based on your quality finish level with what you need. Do you use a tile backsplash or no backsplash? That's all up to you and the level of comps in your market. But in a nutshell, once you get the cabinets, the uppers, and you put all the appliances in the spot, you got a brand new kitchen. At which point you just have to determine the layout and how it's going to be laid out. That's why we bring in professionals. We always actually bring in a kitchen cabinet company to come in and help us design the kitchen. Makes things way easier. We don't pay them anything because we buy the cabinets from them. That's how they get paid. So they design the kitchen for us. Another little tip to be able to save some costs and get professionals to work with you on that. The property has a nice little nook, which could be a nice little buffet nook or kitchen nook or whatever, dining room nook or whatever you want to call it, and convert it into something else if you want. I don't know. Now let's go to the upstairs. There is an upstairs. Kind of weird to go through the kitchen, right? We might change the entry to this in a different area, but this is, for the most part, this is very normal in the Tacoma market where you have a finished attic space. So first off, you can see that the ceilings are a little low in the arch of it, but this is a 1928 build property, right? So in 1928, this is what they did. And this attic got finished at some point over the last 90 years, right? And can't believe this 90-year-old house, right? 90 years. And in that time period, the attic got finished and it's low ceilings, right? So part of it is finished space. There's a reason there's a dormer in it, and we can use it. So the question is, do we change any of the floor plan of the upstairs? And I hope not, because we don't want to increase the cost. So you can count this area here as actually a bedroom if you wanted to, as long as it has a closet. But we are going to want to trash it out. We are going to want to do the base trim doors and so forth. We might want to actually add a door up here so it becomes a bedroom, because there is no door up here. So that takes away from it being a bedroom. So an optional thing is add a door. So that way it become a bedroom. And add a closet, because I didn't see a closet there either. This is just the attic space. You can see kind of like a weird nook area that you'll probably never use. And this is the dormer area, which unfortunately was a kid's bedroom at some point. Uh-oh. That's bed bug, flea fogger. We had bed bugs before. Don't ever buy property with bed bugs in it. That's a little scary, but it's probably fleas if I had to guess. But this is the dormer in the area. And this will be counted as a bedroom for sure. Small bedroom with discoloration. You don't know if that's actually mold until you test it. And it does have a closet here that you can put a door in, a bifold area, and it becomes an actual closet for the house. So we do have a bedroom up there. So that's your 3-bedroom. There's a chance for it to become a 4th bedroom if we just rearrange the upstairs a little bit and put a door in that other area that could become actually a fourth bedroom in the house pretty easily, actually. And now that I'm watching this, I never actually thought about that till I'm watching this with you guys right now. But we might actually do that. That's not a bad idea. Oh, we absolutely need a handrail, that's for sure. It looks like Alex, our camera guy, is going to die otherwise. And we can end on the mudroom, which is where you can check out some of the stuff on it, like the water heater, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to replace all that. That water heater is pretty messed up to begin with. All right, so thanks for walking through that property with me. Now, we went through the exterior, went through the interior. When you add this all up, I'm looking for really expensive things to knock this property out right away. We know the roof's expensive. We know the window's expensive. We know we need to replace the kitchen and the bathroom. But outside of that, everything else is very cosmetic and very simple to do. I didn't see any major red flags on the interior other than the basic stuff, like you have to replace plumbing stuff and you have to do the kitchen stuff. And those are things we do anyways on a cosmetic remodel for ourselves. We replace that stuff all day. So when we go in there and we bunch these things up together, base, trim, doors, all new flooring throughout, all new kitchen, all new bathroom, all new paint throughout, some drywall repairs, no big deal there, right? You have all new doors, which we already talked about, right? You have all those little minor things. There's really not a whole lot left in the house to do other than, the lighting and so forth that needs to get done anyways on this house. So when you map that all out, it's not that scary of a project once you just remove all the garbage and just chunk it into going like, we're just replacing all the finishes in this house and no other major components on the property. Now, you're always going to want to check out the infrastructure. That was the panel. That's your electrical system. That's your HVAC or AC system or heating systems and so forth. And of course, your plumbing. Now, on this particular property, we can't show you guys all this stuff in detail right now, but the truth is we are going to have to replace the plumbing on the property because it's old plumbing, right? Which we're already replacing the kitchen and the bathroom anyways. So it's easy for us to add that into the cost and get the plumber in there to do that. Most of the electrical is good to go. We just are changing the electrical layout of the bathroom and the electrical layout of the kitchen, but that's all minor stuff because we're replacing the kitchen and the bathroom already anyways. So when you break it all down, your scope of work, it's not that big, right? It's taking care of big stuff, and it's a bunch of the normal stuff you would do on any flip or BRRRR to begin with if you had to do all the finished work once and for all. So could we do a $90,000 budget on this property? Yes, I believe you can. Now, the reason why I'm not going to sit here and break down every cost associated with this property on this video right now is because there are thousands and thousands of you guys watching this video right now, all throughout the US and all different markets and all different costs associated with which market you're in. And if I were to sit there and tell you what each one of my costs are, that might mess you up where you are in your market. But I can tell you this, a book like this here, the book on estimating rehab costs with Jay Scott, that's going to help you determine how to determine your rehab budget in your market. Now, rehab costs are going up right now, so that is a factor as well. I'll give you one thing. We had to replace both roofs of the garage and the roof of the house, and we had to do a bunch of sheeting as well, and there's 2 layers, and we spent $10,000 on both of those, so we already knocked off a little over 10% of our budget just on the roof side, right? That could have been a $30,000 roof, depending on who your roofer is. So roofers don't need to be that expensive if you have the right roofers. Trust me. Everything else is going to determine on what market you're in and your cost of materials. And also, believe it or not, your relationship with your contractors and who you use. So dig into that for yourself. It is a lifelong challenge for you to get really good at rehab. And you might not ever need to get really good at rehab because that's where you can hire the professionals or have a partner that can help you with all that kind of stuff over the years, or just get really good at it. All right, so like I said, we have not started this project yet. We've only done some minor work to it. We did the roofs, we've done the trash out, we got rid of the landscaping, and now we're at a point right now to where you have to finish fully the scope, start getting bids, and start getting contractors out there to give us numbers on this deal. But before we can do any of that, we need to know what we actually want to do to the house to begin with. And this gives me another pro tip for you guys to give to you guys, and that is to always prep and plan before you act. If there's any major lesson I've learned in this business is that what hurt me over the years, and I've started a lot of my friends that I've met over the years in this business, is they buy a property and rush right into everything. That will destroy you in most of these properties and give you a lot of change orders and a lot of issues. Time is money, got to move fast, holding costs, blah, blah, blah. Great. There's that term, right? That's out there, or that phrase that somebody said at one time, a long time ago, which is it's better if you have an hour to cut down a tree, spend 45 minutes sharpening the axe, right? I agree with that wholeheartedly when it comes to working on these projects. So always prep and plan first before you start jumping into the project. So for us, one of the prep and plans we have to do besides making the scope of work, in order to finish the scope of work, we have to determine the floor plan that we're going to make. So we always do what's called an as-built or before floor plan of a property. And we use something called Home Designer Pro to be able to build these out. Now, back to one of my other pro tips, which is hire professionals so that you can save costs long term, because you would cost yourself more in the long term doing it yourself. But we used to always hire a drafter to make these plans for us. We eventually learned how to do it ourselves, and someone here on our team, awesome Serena, figured out how to do it, and she is the one that makes these for us now. So you can do it in-house, or you can hire a drafter for a few $100 or more, depending on where you're at, to do this for you. So this is what it looks like of the floor plan. This is the actual house floor plan that we walked not too long ago through the video together. And in it, you can see here's the front door. There's that kitchen with that wall that we talked about as well. There's the bathroom area that we mentioned, the 2 bedrooms that we walked through, and the kitchen's kind of a small area, which is why I'm like, maybe we should open up this wall right here. So I would love to open this wall if we can and add that to part of the scope. Now, there's some tricks to determining out loads. I'm not going to go into an explicit detail here, but the peak of the house, the ridge, is actually right down here in the center. So this wall right here, I could almost bet you is the actual load wall in the house, and the joists for the ceilings are running this way, right? And if that's the case, then there's a very, very, very strong chance this wall is not load bearing at all. So, but we're going to, of course, look into that more professionally before we just start knocking out walls. Don't do that. Make sure you know if it's a load bearing wall or not. But good chance we're going to knock it down. So the kitchen we got to design. This is the layout. So we know what we're working with here. You got how many doors you got, how many windows you have. Makes it a little bit easier to design the project. You go to the upstairs. Upstairs pretty straightforward. You got a bunch of walls everywhere. This is the ridge line that I talked about on the house, the peak that is on there because the house is in A shape. And then you have these walls here, which is where it's only about 4 feet high on these sides because the ridge line goes down and the peak goes down. So what do you do with this bedroom? Here, it needs a little closet. So we got to make sure we close up that closet space. And it has this area over here that can actually, if we add a door here and make sure this is closed up with sheetrock and so forth and an actual wall, then this is actually could become a 4th bedroom if we wanted to. It already is being used as one, at least the past owners did. So we can do that too. Pretty simple. And all of a sudden it becomes a 4-bedroom. And I'm not kidding you guys right now. I didn't even realize that until I was making this video for you guys. That's no joke. Full authenticity, full disclosure. I can't believe we didn't see that before, so which is kind of funny to me. But we can make this a 4-bedroom with no issues whatsoever, and that might actually make it sell for more than $350. Which later, when we do a video for you guys on the aftermath on this property a few months from now, maybe it sells for a lot more than $350 because it's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath instead of a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. Kind of funny to me right now, but. So we see those plans, right? If we just jump into the main floor, right, we're going to do some minor alterations here. We're going to go for this. So in the bathroom, we're going to switch the vanity out to be a little bit smaller because it was a little bit too big, and it actually made the toilet to where it wasn't till code, and that's for Tacoma purposes. Everything else we're keeping the same. So we're going to shrink the vanity. I wish we could make it bigger. We just can't, but we need to keep it to code for what's required here, and that's 30 inches from here to here, technically in City of Tacoma area. We are going to do our best to open this wall up. And this is our basic floor plan for the kitchen layout, which isn't a big difference from what was originally there. You can see the big issue is reality. I think we just moved the dishwasher and that's about it. And so everything else stays around the same location. And also we knock out this, which is probably at one point a chimney in there, if I have to guess as well, but we won't know that until we get in there. And if it is, it's not being used anyways, so we just get rid of it. So if we do that and we move the dishwasher over, a little bit better floor plan here, you get that triangle that you need. That's the only major thing we're doing, which is just a little bit of electrical and a little bit of plumbing, and we're good to go there. Once you have these type of plans, I think that it helps with prepping the property so much better because you get accurate scopes of work, but you can also give accurate data to your contractors to bid so you don't get a bunch of change orders later. It might mean that you have to spend another week or 2 or 3 weeks preparing the property before you get started on it. And for some of you, that might freak you out a little bit too much, specifically if your holding cost is too high. But if it is, I can promise you in the long run, this will save you money in the long run because you'll have less challenges in the actual rehab management of the project. So I threw a lot at you guys today. I mean, not a lot. There's a lot of rehab heavy in this video for sure. You guys can see that there's, this project might first look like it's a lot to do on it, and there's a lot of rehab to be done. And for some of you guys, this is a way bigger project that you want to take on. And I agree. For some of you guys, this is a project that maybe you shouldn't take on, specifically if it's your first deal. But for those of you guys that can see behind the garbage and see that it's not that heavy a rehab, and in reality, it's just a cosmetic rehab that you're doing all the finishes for, right? With a couple of big tickets, it's not that big of a project, right? And maybe then you'll be able to take a project like this on. Now, when you prep and plan, which was one of my first pro tips for you guys, or second pro tip, whatever it is, I've lost count by now. Pro tip for you guys. You prep and plan the property and make a thorough scope of work. Use a general contractor to walk with you. Use a general contractor to help you bid the scope, actually, not bid the scope, build the scope. And then you can actually use that scope that a general contractor makes for you and have other contractors bid for you. That's another tip and trick for you right there, right? We did that years ago. We do the scopes now internally, but at one point we didn't. We allowed other people to do it for us, and then we just refined them over time. So try to get a floor plan, try to get a scope of work in advance, right? Definitely measure risk. That's probably the number one. That is the number one tip I want to give you guys on this video is measure risk always. Mitigate and measure risk. We told you this is a 21.5% deal, cash on cash return for us. Based on a 21.5% cash on cash return deal, and the fact that we can net a little over $40,000 after holding costs, and that the fact that this is not that complicated of a rehab project, that we can get a couple subs on and get a GC in and have very little hands-on work for ourselves, right? I think we're going to do this deal. Now, I don't want to brag, but the truth be told, that when you have the right team, right, and you have the right people in place that you've built for the years, you as the owner of the company shouldn't have to put a ton of effort into these deals over time as you refine your processes, like some of the processes I've shown you guys today. As you refine those processes and you get the right team members and you build the right relationships and you learn your numbers and you don't get overwhelmed by some of the scopes that are out there, you can actually start managing these things for virtually, right? Like I do, or with the right team members. And in which case, there's a lot less stress. There's a lot more fun in this business. And it doesn't need to be as complicated as some of us make it out to be. Like I used to make it out to be years ago when I worked 100 hours a week in this business, learning what I know now, showing you guys what I've shown you today. So I hope that helped you guys. Definitely comment, like, subscribe this video. I love reading your comments. I reply back as best as I can through Fixated Real Estate's YouTube channel, right? But definitely subscribe to BiggerPockets. If you guys want more videos like this, please let us know. I can do more videos like this all day for you guys. But if you're not watching them, then how do I know if you like them? But comment, like, subscribe. And I look forward to showing you guys the later version of this video once we get done with this property and the finished work and how it turned out. I definitely hope to show you that it sold for more. Now that it's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house and a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. That's going to be exciting. So a few months from now, I hope to show you guys that video. Check out the rest of our videos. Definitely check out the great Brandon Turner, right? Our savior of BiggerPockets as well. And his videos here on the YouTube channel. Come back to us. You definitely will love the content that we have coming out to you guys here in the future. And I'll see you at the next video.